They say that home is where we are supposed to feel the safest. But sometimes, home is just a box with thin walls, and the world outside is much larger and darker than we like to admit. Tonight, I'm sharing 5 true stories that range from the deeply disturbing to the strangely protective. These stories aren't just about things that go bump in the night. They are about the moments when the shadows start to move. Let's begin. Our first story takes us back to the 1960s, deep in the jungles of Vietnam. A soldier was on a mission with his team to place sensors along a trail. The jungle was quiet that day. Too quiet. He split off with 2 other men to watch an intersection. Just as he was about to step out onto the trail, he stopped dead. Laying in the brush, just feet away, was a man who shouldn't have been there. He was a black Union cavalry soldier in full battle gear from the 1800s. Pistoiz, a rifle, and a war club at his hip. The soldier froze, trying to understand what he was seeing. The Union soldier looked directly at him, smiled, and put a finger to his lips. He motioned for the soldier to get back. 10 seconds later, an enemy army of nearly 80 men marched right through that intersection. If the soldier had stepped out, his team would have been lost. Years later, the soldier told his grandmother about the mysterious man who saved his life. She didn't look surprised. She simply whispered, "You saw old Red Tom." Red Tom was his great-great-grandfather, a scout from the Civil War who was still watching over his family from the shadows of another world. Sometimes, the danger isn't a ghost. Sometimes, it's a person in a car who just watches. A young girl used to sit in her carport while her older sister was outside. One afternoon, she noticed a white SUV sitting at the end of the road. It had the darkest tinted windows she had ever seen. You couldn't see a soul inside. Every time the sister went out, the car was there. When she went inside, the car would move to a nearby parking lot and wait. This went on for months. One day, the sister decided she'd had enough and started walking toward the vehicle to confront them. Halfway there, she stopped. She later said she felt a wave of utter terror, a physical wall of fear that told her if she took one more step, her life would be over. She ran back inside. Finally, their father, who was a deputy, was home when the car appeared. He walked down the driveway with his duty weapon in hand. The SUV floored it and peeled away. As it sped off, the father noticed the most disturbing detail of all. The license plate wasn't missing. It had been carefully covered with duct tape. They never saw the car again, but the question remains, who was behind that dark glass, and what were they waiting for? In the late 80s, a 7-year-old boy and his teenage sister were home alone in a small Texas town. They were watching a news program about a local man who had gone on a rampage. The room was surrounded by floor-to-ceiling glass windows, looking out into a pitch-black backyard. Suddenly, a massive bam 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 shook the front door. They screamed, freezing in place. After a minute of silence, they heard the outer storm door click shut. Someone was inside the porch. The sister crawled to the TV and turned the metal dial to shut it off with a loud thunk. Now they were sitting in the dark, lit only by the kitchen light down the hall. Then they heard it. The back door handle began to turn. It rattled softly at first. Then, someone began to jerk the door back and forth with violent strength. The entire wall of windows was vibrating. The boy could see his own reflection blurring with every shake of the glass. The sister dragged him into her room, locked the door with a mattress, and called for help. By the time help arrived, the house was silent. There were only scuff marks on the back door, proof that someone had tried with everything they had to get inside. For one man, the greatest terror of his life was the unfinished basement of his childhood home. He had reoccurring nightmares about the time, a moment when he knew something bad was about to happen. In the dream, he would hide under the kitchen table and watch the basement door open, seeing only the legs of a man whose face was always hidden. One day, he was home alone and had to take his laundry down. He brought his dog for protection. The basement was bright with daylight, and he felt brave. He finished the chore and started to walk back up, but he always ran up the stairs. It was a habit. As he started to climb, he heard an insane thudding and scrambling coming up the stairs directly behind him. His brain shut down. He was convinced his nightmare had finally come true. He fell onto the steps, curled into a ball, and closed his eyes, waiting for the end. Then, he felt a wet tongue on his face. It was his dog, excited to be playing a game of race you to the top. Sometimes the monsters we fear are just reflections of our own imagination, but that doesn't make the fear any less real. Finally, we must acknowledge that sometimes the darkness in the world is documented in history books. There are names that carry a heavy weight. Names like Junko Furuta, Kellyanne Bates, or Sylvia Likens. These were people who were in the wrong place at the wrong time, encountering individuals who had lost their humanity. From a DEA agent in Mexico to a toddler in London, these accounts are so heavy that even the juries who heard the facts needed help processing them. They serve as a somber reminder that while we listen to these stories for a thrill, for some, the shadows were all too real. We remember them tonight, and we honor their strength. The world is a mysterious place, full of protectors like Red Tom and shadows like the white SUV. But whether the danger is real or imagined, our instincts are there to guide us through the dark. I share stories like these every night. Bedtime accounts of the strange, the unsettling, and the things that stay with us long after the lights go out. If you find comfort in exploring these accounts with me, keep in touch. There is always another story waiting to be told.